Thank you for being here with us. We begin in Suriname, where the Venezuelan president, Nicolas Maduro, has begun a tour of the Eastern Caribbean. He arrived in Suriname accompanied by his foreign minister, Delcy Rodriguez. Suriname has played an important role in UNASUR, the South American regional body, and is also a member of PetroCaribe, the oil alliance through which Caribbean nations can buy oil at preferential prices. Maduro held talks with President Desi Bouterse in the capital Paramaribo. They agreed that a commission would travel to Caracas in the coming days to organize the supply of rice from Suriname to Venezuela. But not surprisingly, energy was at the center of their discussions.
We have decided to move to a new and higher level of cooperation. We are two peoples and two governments that have a history of good relations, and now we are absolutely determined to develop new forms of cooperation. Starting from the central pillar of our relations, which is PetroCaribe, we want to develop our energy cooperation into the area of alternative energies and joint plans for the more efficient use of energy. We are also working on the financial mechanisms to fund new development projects.
One area we want to develop is energy saving. We are going to mount a campaign in the media together with regional and popular organizations, with women groups and youth movements. We'll be going into the poor neighborhoods to explain this to people, so they understand the importance of saving energy. And this program will be supported by 130,000 energy-saving light bulbs that the President of Venezuela has given us.
Following his visit to Suriname, President Maduro has now traveled on to Antigua and Barbuda. On Saturday, he will visit two other Caribbean islands, St. Lucia and then Grenada, where he will end his tour of the region. Back in Venezuela, the opposition has rejected an agreement for all parties to respect the outcome of this December's parliamentary elections. The National Electoral Council asked all the candidates participating in the elections to sign the document explaining it is one of the guarantees in this year's process.
We have signed this agreement without any conditions. We have not imposed any conditions on the National Electoral Council, and we will not allow for anyone to set conditions on the signing of this agreement. This is an agreement which absolutely follows the Constitution.
Opposition leader Manuel Rosales, who fled the country after being accused of corruption back in 2009, was arrested on Thursday when he returned ahead of the elections. Rosales is the founder of the center-right party called A New Time. He is accused of stealing public money when he was Zulia's governor between the years 2000 and 2008. He fled the country in March of 2009 ahead of a court hearing to decide whether he should be jailed pending trial. He was mayor of Zulia's capital, Maracaibo, at the time, a post now held by his wife. Nicolas Maduro has announced the fourth minimum wage increase this year. The 30% rise to the salary and food stamps will come into effect on November 1st. The president says that the aim is to protect salaries and maintain increases above the inflation rates. Maduro took the opportunity to criticize the right-wing opposition for violating the constitution by discussing with the International Monetary Fund ways in which to privilege multinational companies in Venezuela.
I have decided that in order to protect the minimum wage this last quarter of 2015 and to protect the salary of our beloved workers' class from capitalist thieves, I have decreed a minimum wage increase of 30% and an increase to the subsidized meal ticket.
The outgoing president of Argentina, Cristina Fernandez, at a campaign rally in the Santa Cruz province, said that her party's presidential candidate, Daniel Scioli, would continue the policies that have characterized her government.
Daniel Scioli, the next president of Argentina, will continue maintaining the sector policies so that employment does not fall and that oil companies continue to be an important sector to definitely achieve the energy sovereignty which was the purpose to recover YPF. And this is why we have called on him many times as a senator and a provincial and national deputy who has honoured his word and never betrayed us.
And staying in Argentina, a new parliamentary initiative seeks to investigate the complicity between the economic establishment and the country's last dictatorship. From Buenos Aires, our correspondent Laureano Ponce with more.
As part of the initiatives that seek to reinforce the achievements made in the field of human rights during the last decade, the Argentine Congress is putting forward a new bill that seeks to form a parliamentary committee to investigate the role of economic establishment during the country's last dictatorship. The draft is endorsed by the ruling Front for Victory, and it has found strong support by human rights movements.
This initiative is essential as it puts an end to the amnesia over some very important figures like big businessmen, but it also puts all state branches to investigate about the effects of capitalism and the true businesses that the last dictatorship came to establish.
Many important figures of the business world had become officials after the 1976 military coup, like its economy minister José Alfredo Martínez de Hoz, who was part of several national and international companies. This seems to show that there were close ties between the dictatorship and the neoliberal model installed at the time.
These businesses were part of the criminal plan. It was not possible to make such businesses without institutionalizing state terrorism. The constant increase in production was achieved at gunpoint. It was achieved by kidnapping members of the workers' unions.
The draft was also harshly criticized by Argentina's top business leaders, arguing it is aimed at stigmatizing them. However, many believe this is a two-faced discourse that hides their opposition to investigate the link between big businesses and state terrorism.
We need to be aware and alert, because now we start to hear many talking about forgive and forget, about leaving behind all that has happened. We will never accept that.
Despite the abstention of the 14 representatives aligned with the right-wing presidential hopeful Mauricio Macri, the bill was approved by 170 votes in the lower house, and it is expected to be passed into law by the Senate after the presidential elections in October 25. Laureano Ponce, Telesur, Buenos Aires.
Ecuadorian President Rafael Correa praised the Colombian peace process in Havana and highlighted that peace is much more than the absence of war, and that the continent should be proud of being a region of peace.
The FARC have all our heartfelt support, and I believe that the peace process in Colombia is good news. It is the only violent conflict that remains in our America that has been declared a zone of peace, or area without violence, because peace is much more than just the absence of violence, the presence of justice. But we have protected this well, and the most important is peace. It is a great privilege that our America has this. Not even Europe can say this.
Members of the Mercosur Parliament met in La Paz, Bolivia, to finalize the agreements in progress that will be evaluated in Uruguay at the full meeting. On the agenda is the repopulation of livestock and the analysis of the Paraguay-Parana waterway, which cuts through half of South America and could become an important shipping route for exports, and of course which could also give Bolivia access to the Atlantic Ocean. Mercosur is a sub-regional trade bloc, with its members being Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, Uruguay and Venezuela. Bolivia just needs parliamentary approval from Paraguay to become a full member.
On the theme of integration, this is what interests us with the Mercosur trade bloc. Integrate ourselves with the countries and work together for the good of all the region.
This is the first reunion that we have had in Bolivia to bring out concerns on how they can cooperate, such as in Mercosur, and overall review the Bolivian projects to become a full member of Mercosur. As brothers, we know that themes such as a waterway that will be 3,400 kilometers long will help the country send products to the Atlantic Ocean.
Bolivia has reduced the number of school dropouts by introducing a scheme that rewards students who stay in school. Every year, students in primary and secondary education get a $30 allowance. The program is credited with encouraging thousands to stay in school, as our correspondent Dimitri O'Donnell reports from La Paz.
This was no ordinary school day for millions of Bolivian students. Lessons ended earlier than normal as they waited to receive their bonus of $30. More than 2 million primary and secondary pupils benefit from the annual giveaway.
I want 200,000 Bolivianos because I want to buy a computer.
The money will help me buy useful stuff for school, like books, folders, and shoes.
The scheme was first introduced 9 years ago to help bring down the school dropout rate, and it appears to be working. The numbers leaving secondary school early has been halved to 4%. For primary pupils, the numbers are even lower at just 1.7%.
We want all Bolivian children to finish not just primary and secondary school, but to become graduates.
The millions needed for the scheme comes from the profits of 13 state companies. Parents say the extra cash helps motivate the students.
The money is a great help. It's an incentive for the children to encourage study, and for the parents it's a great support because we can buy them useful things like school uniforms.
Despite projected program. Dimitri O'Donnell, Telesur, La Paz.
Hondurans have returned to the streets, marching on the government house to call for an end to corruption and impunity in the country. Our correspondent Geraldo Torres is there. Hi, Geraldo. Can you please describe for us what's happening there as we speak?
Well, hello, good night. At this moment, there is a new demonstration of the known as the outrage movement or indignados. Now with the incorporation of the workers of their owners for money laundering in the United States. So now 11,000 workers that have been taken off of their work because of the closing of this corporation group are now joining the indignados in this demonstration in the Tegucigalpa Street.
Geraldo, we know that a lot of people were protesting earlier this year, mainly in July, tens of thousands actually, against the Social Security Institute's corruption scandal. Is this the same? Is this related to that? What are they demanding now? The protesters, that is.
Well, people are still demanding an investigation in those public officials, Juan Orlando Hernandez. What this movement has been asking for the last 4 months is that the president create an international commission to do this investigation in corruption cases of embezzlements above the $500 million. But the president has said that he won't allow this international system that has proved that has an impunity of over 96%. So people are still on the street when more people joining them in this process.
Now, Geraldo, the government had previously ignored the protesters up until this point, but impunity remains remarkably high. What has been and what do you think will be the government's reaction now?
Well, people will continue on the street protesting, demanding creating more pressure. There are two demonstrations right now, one here in Tegucigalpa, the other one in the second major city in the country, that is San Pedro Sula. The government has assured that they are doing an investigation. There are none of the people that were accused of corruption are in jail. None of them have been formally accused. Only some of them have been accused. But the government continues is working through impunity with the support of the United States government and some of the national media, while the protesters are still on the street and still keep on going.
Geraldo, thanks so much for that update. Please take care in the streets. We'll touch base with you next week. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Moving on now, another former president, Guatemalan Otto Perez Molina, currently in jail, has accused the United States of intervening in his country and coercing a UN investigative group to involve him in a corruption scandal. Perez sent a letter to the CELAC's pro tempore head, President of Ecuador, Rafael Correa, asking him to intervene in the case. In April, a major corruption scheme was unveiled, and it led to massive protests and the arrests of various officials. Perez's lawyers said his guilt has not been proven, and yet they are treating him as a confirmed criminal.
And in the political portion, the president highlights that this turned out to be a retaliation. Lamentably, by the government of the United States through the CICIG possibly, because the president during his time did not accept certain policies imposed by the interests of the United States.
Over 250,000 people of Haitian origin are now stateless. This comes after a change in the law of neighboring Dominican Republic so that children born there of undocumented foreigners lose Dominican citizenship. The deadline for registering or facing deportation was back on June 17th. The two nations share the Caribbean island of Hispaniola, and Haiti is the poorer of the two. Many Haitians are now living in squatter camps in deplorable conditions. Two more Palestinians are now dead and several others wounded after they attempted to approach an Israel-controlled border fence between Gaza and Israel. Friends and family members mourn the losses of life, which represent the latest in escalating acts of violence over the past 2 weeks between Israeli forces and Palestinians. The death toll now stands at 42, 35 Palestinians and 7 Israelis.
Mr. President, we come to you today asking the Council to urgently intervene to end this aggression against our defenseless Palestinian people and against our shrines, which are subject to violations by the Israeli military occupation and by the Israeli settlers and by extremists.
Let me be crystal clear. Israel will not agree to any international presence on the Temple Mount. Such a presence would be a change in the status quo.
To Syria now, where the recent escalation of the conflict has made it even more challenging to deliver aid to the millions in need. This is according to the United Nations humanitarian chief.
There is a continuing, very, very stressful and dangerous context in Syria for the Syrian people, wherever they are within Syria, on whichever side of the fighting lines. And what we need is the continuing deliveries of the life-saving and basic commodities that help people stay if they are still in Syria.
Turkey's President Tayyip Erdogan is not happy with the proposals brought forward by the European Union as it pertains to his country's role in the refugee crisis. After an EU meeting this week, members offered Turkey that talks would be re-energized over their joining the EU, as well as accelerated visa liberalization for Turks wanting to visit the EU. Erdogan has called the proposals unacceptable. And Hungary is moving ahead with its plans to close its border on Friday night at 10 p.m. Neighboring Croatia said that it will continue to transport refugees to the Hungarian border until midnight, after which it will begin transporting refugees to the Slovenia border. Slovenia says it will keep its borders open once Austria and Germany held at Cuba's Guantanamo base by the United States since 2002 and had been cleared for release in 2010. However, 36-year-old Tariq Ba-Oda is still being held in captivity. However, in protest of the U.S.'s failure to release him, Oda started a hunger strike and is now down to about 74 pounds in weight. His lawyers are seeking to have him receive medical attention and to be set free. The last episode of the U.S. television series Homeland created quite a stir among Middle Eastern online communities. Arabic graffiti artists were hired to draw arbitrary markings on the walls for scenes in the episode. However, they took the opportunity to do a lot more. The artists, who ironically were not supporters of the show because they believe it features stereotypical, one-dimensional presentations of Muslims, wrote quotes on the walls such as, "There is no homeland," "Homeland is not a show," "Black Lives Matter," and "Homeland is racist." The artists said the hope is to show the writers of the show that more accurate scripts are needed.
I think what we're trying to raise is, regardless of whether or not this show is fiction, it still has very dangerous implications because they're basically stereotyping an enormous region of people, of very diverse cultures, of Muslims and non-Muslims, to an incredibly shallow, one-dimensional image that has an impact on in a very real way. And so we wanted to, raise attention to the fact that this is not harmless. In fact, quite the opposite.
And now a brief look at other stories for you, making news around the world.
At least 34 people are dead in Nigeria after suicide bombers detonated their devices in the midst of civilians over the past 24 hours. Residents say the death toll is twice that figure. In a previous statement, Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari said that he was confident of ending the Boko Haram threat by the end of this year.
Yes.
An Afghan refugee who was trying to cross into Bulgaria from Turkey was killed late on Thursday night by a ricochet bullet after a police officer allegedly fired warning shots during scuffles. More than 50 refugees had crossed into the country via Turkey. Swiss voters are set to head to the polls on Sunday for the country's national elections. The anti-immigrant party, the Swiss People's Party, has been forecast to win. Europe's migrant crisis is the burning issue for Swiss voters. Polls suggest a boost for the SVP, which is the party behind efforts to ban face-covering veils and construction of Muslim minarets. Huma Abedin, who was the assistant to the U.S. Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton, faced a Republican-led House panel to answer questions on the 2012 attacks in Benghazi, Libya, that resulted in the deaths of 4 Americans. However, Democrats were angered by the panel's decision to question Abedin, who they say had no policy responsibilities, no operational responsibilities, and was not with Clinton on the night of the incident.
New FIFA investigations are beginning after new allegations of bribery that led to the 2006 World Cup in Germany were reported by German magazine Der Spiegel. According to the magazine, Germany won the bid after bribes were paid to 4 Asian representatives on FIFA's executive committee. It added that a slush fund back then worth about $6 million was set up to accommodate the bribery.
The executive committee was placed in front.
And to end this evening, on Thursday, President Barack Obama welcomed a Cuban band along with the Cuban ambassador to the White House. The event took place on the last day of National Hispanic Heritage Month in the United States and coincided with the 25th anniversary of the White House Initiative on Educational Excellence for Hispanics. The band, named Buena Vista Social Club, performed for the crowd and included classics in their set, such as Candela. Good to end on a great note. That's it for us this Friday evening. Remember that there is more on these and other stories on our website, telesurtv.net/English. From our news teams in Quito, Ecuador, and right here in Caracas, Venezuela, my name is Regan Devines. We hope you have a great and safe weekend. And of course, we hope to see you on Monday.